Your last blood test came back normal. That may be the most dangerous sentence your doctor ever said to you. Not because they were wrong, because normal was never designed to catch what builds silently over years, long before a single symptom appears, long before anything on paper looks like a problem. Most people who had a heart attack last year had recent blood work on file. Most had heard those same reassuring words. The numbers that would have told a different story were either missing from the report or sitting just inside a range that was never built to catch what was actually happening. There are 3 blood markers that change that picture. Most adults over 40 have never had all 3 measured. This is what they are and why they matter now. You probably already feel that something has shifted. Not dramatically, not in a way you could explain in a 10-minute appointment, but the energy is not quite the same. Recovery takes longer. The weight sits differently. And when blood work comes back clean, there is that brief moment of relief, followed sometimes by a quieter thought. Then why don't I feel fine? That thought is worth taking seriously. Standard lab ranges were not built to answer it. They were built to identify disease after it has already established itself, not to catch the slow biological drift that begins years before any diagnosis. After 40, that drift is real. It is measurable. It can be tracked. By the end of this video, you will know which 3 markers reveal it, what each one is actually measuring, and what the current evidence says you can do about them. This is not meant to alarm you. It is meant to clarify, because the one thing worse than a difficult number on a lab report is a significant number that no one noticed. LDL cholesterol. LDL is not a toxin. It is a particle that carries cholesterol through the bloodstream to the tissues that need it. In normal amounts, it serves a necessary function. The problem begins when there is too much of it, circulating for too long. Excess LDL slips through the inner lining of artery walls. Once inside, it oxidizes. The immune system responds by sending cells to contain the damage. Those cells accumulate, harden, and form dense fibrous deposits, plaque. The artery narrows. No pain, no warning, no sensation of any kind, until one section of plaque becomes unstable, cracks, and triggers a clot. That is what a heart attack is, not a sudden event, the final moment of a process that had been running silently for years. The standard clinical threshold is LDL below 100 milligrams per deciliter. But risk does not switch on at a number. It accumulates continuously, long before anything gets flagged. For women, there is another layer that rarely comes up in routine appointments. Estrogen plays a protective role in how the body handles cholesterol. When estrogen falls during menopause, typically in the late 40s to early 50s, LDL can rise by 15 to 25%, even with no change in diet or lifestyle. A woman whose numbers looked healthy throughout her 40s may find, in her early 50s, that the same body now produces significantly higher LDL. That is not failure, it is biology. And it is exactly the kind of shift that goes unnoticed unless someone is specifically looking for it. Most of what shapes the cardiovascular body at 70 is being quietly decided in the decade before. The second marker is about blood sugar, and whether the system that once managed it quietly and automatically is beginning, after 40, to show the first signs of strain. Most standard panels measure fasting glucose, one blood sugar reading after 8 hours without food. A snapshot. A person can have completely normal fasting glucose while spending the rest of their day in ranges that are quietly doing damage. HbA1c measures something different. It captures the percentage of hemoglobin that has bonded with glucose over the past 2 to 3 months. Not a moment, a pattern, a chemical record of what blood sugar has actually been doing across an extended period. Normal is below 5.7%. Prediabetes sits between 5.7 and 6.4, and more than 80% of people in that prediabetic range have no idea they are there. By age 65, roughly half of American adults qualify. They feel tired in a way that sleep does not fully resolve. The weight around the middle will not move the way it used to, and most of them do what most people do. They quietly lower what they expect from their body and tell themselves this is just getting older. They are not wrong that something is changing. They are wrong about what it is. When blood sugar stays elevated, even modestly, even within the pre-diabetic range, it damages blood vessel walls, triggers inflammation, and stiffens arterial tissue. It accelerates the same plaque building process already being driven by LDL. These two systems are not running separate problems. They are feeding the same one. The window to act is open. It will not stay open indefinitely. Marker 3, hs-CRP. This is the marker most people have never discussed with their doctor. In many cases, it was never ordered at all. High-sensitivity C-reactive protein, hs-CRP, is a protein the liver releases in response to inflammation. It is not a direct cause of disease, but it is one of the clearest signals available that something consequential is happening beneath the surface. And here's what people are never clearly told about heart disease. Atherosclerosis is not simply a plumbing problem. At its core, it is an inflammatory disease. The process by which LDL enters artery walls, oxidizes, and forms plaque is driven by immune activation. And when a plaque ruptures and a heart attack occurs, inflammation is part of what broke it loose. And hs-CRP is a window into that process. Below 1 milligram per liter is considered low cardiovascular risk. Between 1 and 3 is moderate. Above 3 is high. These numbers do not sound dramatic, but they are consequential, and most people have never seen theirs. A landmark Harvard study followed nearly 28,000 women over 30 years. It found that hs-CRP measured in midlife was among the strongest predictors of future heart attacks and strokes. In some analyses, it outperformed LDL cholesterol itself. People with completely normal cholesterol but elevated hs-CRP still faced meaningfully higher cardiovascular risk. In 2025, the American College of Cardiology formally recommended universal hs-CRP screening for primary prevention. The science had reached its conclusion. Standard clinical practice is still catching up, and what drives this number higher? Visceral fat, the fat that accumulates around the abdomen, is itself inflammatory tissue. It actively releases inflammatory signals. So does poor sleep. So does chronic stress carried across years. The accumulated weight of how a person has lived through their 30s and 40s shows up here, often long before symptoms ever appear. Most people have never seen this number. What most people get wrong: there are 3 assumptions that cause people to dismiss what these markers are actually saying. The first is this: no symptoms means no problem, but none of these markers produce symptoms early on. LDL does not hurt. Prediabetes is largely invisible. Elevated hs-CRP cannot be felt. For these markers, the absence of symptoms is not reassurance. It is the problem. The second assumption is that prediabetes inevitably becomes diabetes. It does not. Many people in that range never progress. Some even return to normal levels. Prediabetes is not a fixed outcome. It is a warning zone, one that still leaves room to act. And the third assumption, a mildly elevated CRP is probably just a recent infection. Usually, it is not. Chronic low-grade inflammation at 2 or 3 milligrams per liter is not a cold. It reflects the sustained inflammatory state of the body over time. A mildly elevated hs-CRP in an otherwise healthy-seeming person is not a false alarm. It is the alarm. What this means in practice: these 3 markers do not operate independently. They amplify each other. Inflammation speeds up plaque buildup. Metabolic dysfunction drives inflammation. Elevated glucose stiffens the arterial tissue that LDL is already trying to penetrate. So catching even one of these early can matter for all 3. That changes the conversation with a doctor. Not, is my cholesterol okay? But what is my LDL specifically? And given my age, is the standard threshold still the right benchmark for me? Not, is my blood sugar normal? But have I had an HbA1c and has it been trending upward over time? And the question most adults over 40 have never asked: has anyone checked my hs-CRP? The evidence on what moves these numbers is more specific than most people realize. A 7% reduction in body weight was shown in a major trial to cut progression from prediabetes to diabetes by more than half. A Mediterranean-style or plant-forward diet consistently lowers both LDL and hs-CRP. Regular physical activity improves insulin sensitivity and measurably reduces systemic inflammation. These are not vague wellness suggestions. They are measurable, reproducible results from large clinical trials. These numbers move. The body has been measuring all of this the entire time, precisely, continuously, in numbers that can be requested, tracked, and acted on years before any crisis arrives. LDL, HbA1c, hs-CRP, 3 readings on one underlying question: what is my body doing right now in the systems that will determine what is possible at 65, at 70, at 75, before I can feel any of it? A landmark Harvard study followed nearly 28,000 women for 30 years. It found that these markers, measured in midlife, predicted cardiovascular events that happened decades later. The body had been keeping score the entire time. Most of us simply never thought to ask what the numbers said. Know these 3 markers, ask for them by name, and whatever they say today, they are not a verdict. The body responds to change more readily than most people expect. The next video goes further. Specific numbers from clinical trials, how much each marker can realistically improve, what works fastest, and when lifestyle changes are enough versus when medication becomes part of the conversation. Because understanding what is happening is only step 1. Understanding how to change it is where this becomes actionable.